Effective decision making, obviously, it's very, very important, and it's one of the aspects that clusters need to facilitate, and that's what they're there for.
The thing that I have realized around decision making is that, having worked in the UN, worked in the Red Crescent movement, worked with NGOs, each one of those groupings doesn't have particularly clear or efficient decision-making even within those pillars, if you want to call them that. So not surprising that when all of those come together, including the government and local communities, it's a bit of or it can feel like a free-for-all.
When you're dealing with independent organizations that have different ways of operating, that have different stakeholders, that are accountable to different groups, and that may differ in the way, or even compete in the way that they raise money and other resources, there certainly is the potential for quarreling and disagreement. There also may be different operating philosophies that conflict with each other.
It's important, particularly in the early phases when decisions need to be made quickly, that a balance is struck between being inclusive but also being incisive, and this can be a bit difficult for a coordinator, because a coordinator is a facilitator and doesn't have direct access to the resources that will implement the program. This is the agencies. But finding that balance is very important.
Well, I think buy-in is the number one point. If people don't feel they were involved or that their opinions weren't taken into consideration, the decision that comes down can fall on deaf ears, and that can lead to inaction or pushback. I've certainly seen that previously in this operation where the cluster didn't feel that they had been considered in the decision, and it wasn't their first priority then to carry out that decision. The lack of communication at times from the HCT back to the clusters has been a problem. Decisions are made, but they're not communicated and promulgated properly, and then they don't get enacted. So those are some of the challenges that we've dealt with. I think we're dealing with them now, and it's something that we're going to continue to focus on to ensure that the decisions that are made are well informed from the start, and that they are then carried out to the best of our ability to do so.
Well, sometimes the decision making, it's about putting away your ego, or the one of your organization, or the one of the stakes which are external to the actual best interest, and making decision about something which matters. So when everyone cooperates together, when everyone is clear about what the decision should bring, what is the importance of it, because sometimes decision making is clouded by other factors. It's clouded by the fact that people might think they need to decide, while actually a decision is not required at that time, and they might need more information. There might be need for more discussion so that everyone is comfortable with a certain decision. There might be times when decisions are made not necessarily in the meeting, but rather outside of the meeting, where everyone is brought on the board. So that's the kind of hidden consensus.
The Westgate was a major attack in Nairobi, one that required, major coordination on the part of the players, the ambulance operators, the police, the government sector, the armed forces. And I think in terms of coordination, it was probably a watershed moment that we decided that we had to pull together all the actors after Westgate so that we act in a coordinated manner. Mapping who is who and who is doing what, and bringing them together and knowing their capacities, that has significantly improved things.
I think probably the key element that we need to be talking about when it comes to decision making across all the different organizations that respond to complex emergencies is really getting to a point where we can effectively communicate in a common language, where we have the same terms that we use, and we don't have disparate organizations using different types of terms, and especially acronyms, that can confuse one another.
We like to believe in the one person that's totally omniscient and has total power and knows what's going on. That person doesn't exist during a disaster because there's so many unknowns. Instead, we bring a unified command, people that has that have a little piece of the pie. We bring them together and we ask them to use their experience, their intuitive knowledge, but combine that with the other people in that command structure. And I think that that's the game changer. When I could blame it on somebody else, it's easy to have an argument and never reach a decision. But if I'm accountable for the collective decision, then I have to work a little harder and I have to listen.
The word command and unified command is in some respects a misnomer. It is a voluntary relationship under most circumstances. People and organizations do not surrender their autonomy, but they participate in a collaborative decision-making process and have at least an implicit commitment to abide by the decisions that are made by that collaborative leadership group. In general, the incident management system does have some things that the humanitarian community ought to be thinking about. In many respects, the problem that the humanitarian community confronts in a large-scale emergency is very similar to what the emergency management community confronts. Many groups and individuals come together under the pressure of events, often in dangerous circumstances. They have to collaborate because their own resources are insufficient to deal with whatever they're facing. But often they don't know the other people that they're dealing with. They may not have worked with the other organizations. And so the problem of fitting together their efforts, dividing up labor, finding a way to coordinate their activities is a very pressing and difficult one.